everyone, welcome to StudyIQ English. Today's topic is quite interesting. We are talking about a country called Burkina Faso, which has been in the news in the last 3 years repeatedly, but each time for a wrong reason. The country is notorious for human right deprivation, genocide, violence, and terrorism. It all started back in 2022 September when military junta took over Burkina Faso. And since then, the country has seen 2 million people who were internally displaced. The country is already a low income Sahelian country that's in the Sahel region of Africa. And today, the country is witness to genocide, hunger, and human crimes, war crimes against humanity. Now, today, once again, Burkina Faso is in news all over. But this time, it's because of a very controversial legislation that has been passed by the Parliament of Burkina Faso. And this is about banning, prohibiting, outlawing homosexuality. So, the Parliament of Burkina Faso has made a law wherein homosexual practices are prohibited. And anybody who is found to break the law shall be sent to prison for up to 5 years. They will also be penalized in terms of financial fines. And if these people who break the law happen to be outsiders, who do not have the citizenship of Burkina Faso, they will be expelled from the country or deported. With this nature of extreme law, the world community is shocked, and the world community is asking that why are so many African countries consistently banning homosexual practices when there are other countries like US, UK, many European Union countries, Thailand, including even Nepal, who have very, very liberal policies towards homosexuality as well as the LGBTQ plus 2 group. So, why and how come African extremism is coming in the way of people's natural rights, humanitarian rights? That's the question. So, Burkina Faso in picture is a country that's home to about 23 million people. And since military junta's takeover in 2022, it has seen many, many episodes of violence being erupting pretty regularly. Now, today, as we talk about how Burkina Faso has outlawed homosexuality, let's understand that if Africa is a continent of 54 countries, all of which are recognized by the United Nations, 32 out of these have prohibited homosexual practices. And very recently, there were countries like Sierra Leone, Kenya, South Sudan, Togo, and many more, where also homosexuality stood criminalized. Similarly, Mali, that's a key ally of Burkina Faso, had also adopted a law by criminalizing homosexuality back in 2024. Similarly, you have Ghana and Uganda. They have also come out heavily, creating heavy penalties and punishments to people practicing homosexuality. Once again, it is creating a stir amongst human rights activists, NGOs, the world over, who feel that this kind of a conservative attitude and this kind of tampering with people's civil rights, how valid that is in 2025, at a time when the world communities are only evolving, globalizing. And here, owing to extreme religious practices, extreme cultural practices, African countries, one after the other, are taking strict laws against people's sexual orientations. Is that a valid thing to do? That's the question. Now, let's talk about few countries who have quite open and transparent laws about homosexual practices. For example, same sex marriages are permitted across 39 countries right now, which includes US, which includes UK. Of course, we have Denmark, we have Brazil, Belgium, Austria, Spain, Sweden, Taiwan, South Africa, many more countries. In 2024, Thailand also passed a legislation which legalized same sex marriages. And Thailand then became the third Asian country to legalize gay marriage. Now, you'll be quite surprised to know which were the first two. The first was Nepal and then Taiwan. Now, talking about India, India as a case study. So, India also adopted quite a liberal stance towards homosexuality when, back in 2018, the Supreme Court of India had decriminalized homosexuality. It had struck down the section 377 of Indian Penal Code, which had criminalized consensual homosexuality between adults. So that was now removed, and today India does allow homosexual practices. Of course, India has not allowed same sex marriages yet, but then there are many countries who allow that as well, as we just spoke about. Now, talking about Indian case, we had this very famous court case called Navtej Singh Johar versus the Union of India case. In here, the Supreme Court delivered its very liberal, very shocking verdict, which said that the people from LGBTQ IA plus community have every right because they are Indian citizens. And the Indian constitution, whether it's Article 14 or whether it's Article 15, 16, all the various fundamental rights in the constitution, they completely support equality to each and every individual citizen of India, irrespective of their religion, their language, their gender, and their race, which means there is no reason in a modern contemporary society to create interference and to trouble, to outlaw the practices of people coming from this group because they have absolutely equal constitutional rights when it comes to equality and dignity. Yes, definitely comes in picture Article 21. Even people from LGBTQ community, they have every right to life, to a dignified life. They have every right to free speech and expression, Article 19. So, keeping that in mind, yes, the Supreme Court of India allowed homosexuality, consensual homosexuality, but at the same time, homosexual marriages, same sex marriages have not been allowed in India yet because the government is saying there is no fundamental right explicitly mentioned in the constitution where there is a need for us to allow marriage between same sex individuals. So, as of now, we cannot permit them until even under existing liberal laws like the Special Marriages Act. Now, the Special Marriages Act 1954 is one of its own kind, open minded legislation in India because it permits marriages between people from different religious affiliations, different castes, even people from the same gotra. They can legally marry each other. The court will give them valid papers of marriage, valid certification. So it's a very, very liberal doctrine. But yet, it is not opened up for same sex marriages. Another thing to remember is that trampling people's right towards homosexual practices is quite an obstacle when it comes to United Nations 2030 agenda for sustainable development and the organization's broad commitments to leave nobody behind. Now, if you ever look at any of the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, that were adopted in 2015 by various member countries, each goal comes with the same tagline for everybody, everywhere in the world by 2030, which means every community member in this globe, every individual is allowed benefit through the SDGs. Now, talking about UNDP, this is working with governments and partners across the world to create policies and programs that address inequalities among people, particularly those who experience inequalities because they are deprived of their human rights as they come from the LGBTQ group. So, all these things become quite important for GS paper 2, our UPSC exam, because yes, this is social justice towards vulnerable populations, towards marginalized minorities. And then let's talk about 2014 Nalsa judgment. These two judgments of Supreme Court are quite important in this regard. Talking about the Nalsa judgment 2014, the Supreme Court confirmed that the rights of transgender people will be recognized as the third gender rights and they will be included across various welfare schemes. The government is already giving them welfare schemes now. For example, the Smile scheme, the Garima Greh scheme, and there are many more that empower people from the third gender towards getting education, vocational skill, and some kind of job opportunity. Then comes the Puttaswamy judgment 2017. Very, very important because this is a landmark judgment under which the Supreme Court observed that the right to privacy is a fundamental right in India. So nobody can interfere in anybody's religious or gender affiliation or any other documentation, any other lifestyle related issue which a person does not want to disclose. No breach of privacy or no breach of private data. And hence, this also includes family life and sexual orientation. So, under the right to privacy, also we have to respect the rights of the people coming from this community. And on that note, let's have a look at a PYQ, rather a small prelims question. It says, consider the following statements regarding Section 377 of the IPC. 1. Section 377 was introduced in the IPC during colonial period. 2. In the Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India case 2018, the Supreme Court decriminalized consensual acts between adults in private under the section. 3. The provision was completely removed from the IPC by the Supreme Court of India. Now, the third option is slightly confusing. We need to understand that the entire section 377 has not been removed. Only homosexuality as a crime has been decriminalized. Okay, so we can answer the question by looking at the codes below, and then I have attached the answer for your reference as well. Now that if you enjoy the video and you think it is helpful to you, then do like, share, and subscribe us at StudyIQ English. Thank you.